Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 16 of Knittings and Sewings, a podcast about all things multi-craftal in the fiber arts, including knitting, spinning, weaving, sewing, crochet, and whatever else I happen to get up to at any given time. I appreciate your joining us tonight. I just recorded a podcast about a week or so ago, but I wanted to come in once again, Walter and I, to share a few little tidbits for you, last minute tidbits, before the 2023 Stephen West MKAL begins. So this is, you could consider this kind of like the Geogradient pregame show, if you like. I'm going to offer you a few handy tips from my one time of completing the 2021 Shellography MKAL. And I didn't do it last year. I watched from the sidelines. But I really love Stephen West and all of his designs. And so I look forward to, once again, launching into this fully in the next week. It's supposed to start October 5th. So thank you for joining us. And I will look forward to giving you a few ideas to make your MKAL experience even better. I want to begin tonight by showing you a mood ring from, it's a replica from the 1970s. It's not an original. But I did have a mood ring in the 1970s when I was a teenager, and they were quite common. A lot of teenage girls had them, and they came in a little box, and they would have a little card that came with it that told you what each color meant in terms of mood. And supposedly, I think the blue, if I remember correctly, signified contentment or calm. And actually, I have since learned, I'm pretty sure that what makes the color of the mood ring is actually the temperature of your body. So if it turns black all of a sudden, it's more likely that you are extremely cold rather than you're in an extremely depressed mood. But at any rate, it was really a fun little piece from that time period. It was very, very common. It was as common actually as a smiley cup might be. We used to have the smiley cups and other smiley decals and symbols. But anyway, it was a very common thing. So I want to begin tonight by telling you that I had shown you last time the kit that I received from the Stephen and Penelope website. It was the Life in the Long Grass stone colorway, and the colors were different shades of teal, and it had that white shade with the gray speckles at the beginning as my color A. And I wanted to give you a little update on that because many of you had been kind enough to weigh in and offer suggestions of what you liked better on the substitute colors that I had tried to put into that to make that kit salvageable for myself. But I did want to update you that I'm about 75 to 80% sure that I will not be going with that kit at all, because I've since come upon a couple of different alternatives that I think will work better, that I'm more excited about doing. And so I'm still even deciding on what I will land on, but I do have some things in consideration, and I hope to definitely have that decision made by the time Clue 1 is released and I view the design. I think that will give me even a better idea of what I will end up going with. So I wanted to update you on that so that you would know where I stood in terms of my color and what I was going to end up selecting. So that is the update. I will be going with something different, and I should have that decided very soon. The clock is running out. We've only have a few days left after all. But anyway, that's how that is going to be. It's going to be some other option. And I'm wondering if you guys have selected your kit yet. Have you changed your mind at all, or have you definitely decided on a kit and started swatching for it? So swatching is a good idea because not only does it give you an idea of how you will be in terms of gauge, if you're going to be directly on gauge with a size 4 needle and 24 stitches for every 4 inches, or if you're going to need to go up or down a needle size. In my case, I tend to be a loose knitter like Stephen. And apparently I'm even more of a loose knitter than Stephen, because when I did my gauge swatch with the teal yarn, I ended up needing to go down to a size 3 in order to get the gauge. And the reason that's important is because obviously a shawl does not have to be form-fitting. It doesn't have to fit you like a garment. But since we have a yardage, that may be pretty close, my original kit, I don't remember what my yardage was on that Life in the Long Grass kit, but I'm sure that, they say it was 435 yards, whatever it was. I didn't want to run out, and I might run out if I had gone with the size 4 needle. So that is a concern. And if you're too tight of a knitter, you can end up with fabric that might be not as drapey as you might like for a shawl. So it is a good idea, if you can, to do the gauge swatch for that reason, and also see how your colors are going to work together, the A, B, C, and D colors. How are they going to work together? And is there going to be enough color differentiation to meet this year's knit along? Because he had suggested that you make them visibly, different, like stripes that would be distinct from one another. So that's all we know is what he said so far. But from that advice, I think swatching is a really good idea. And if you are absolutely not one who wants to swatch, at least take an index card and wrap your thread, your yarn, around the index card in the A, B, C, and D order to see if those colors do work together. So that is kind of a cheat swatching that you can do with the wrapping around method. So that way you can experiment with different order of the colors and see what you like best. And many people do the thing where they take the photo and edit it into grayscale to make sure that there are enough color saturation differences. You can do that as well. But I have noticed that many of the people's kits and color selections, even Stephen's own kits, don't all have a huge amount of difference in the grayscale. So I don't know how important that is or not, but I have a feeling that once Clue 1 is released, we'll all have a much better idea of the direction that we will go with our final color selection. So that's the first thing I wanted to mention. And the next thing is, go on Ravelry if you possibly can, if you're a member of Ravelry, or if you're not a member yet, you can certainly join up. But it's free. But I immediately, when I get onto the MKAL, I set up a project page with the Geogradient and all my yarn and my, my pictures of my yarn and my yarns written out in the project page. But that way, I have everything set up to get going. Once we actually have that clue released, then any kind of notes I want to make, such as the fact that I used a size 3 needle, anything I use like that can be noted in my project page. And then other people who are also involved in this knit along community can also look at your page and make some good observations from what you have noted in your project page. So that's a really good time to start doing that right now, if you haven't already. Another thing I do on Ravelry is to join the latest MKAL group. Stephen West has each year a brand new little group. This year it's Geogradient, MKAL 2023, that you can join. And the reason for this, if you think, well, I don't need to talk about my project, the reason it's good, even if you never comment on it, is because you can get ideas and suggestions and troubleshooting from other people who are also doing the MKAL along with you. So I really like it for that reason. And right now, for example, Stephen has one topic called news and updates. And if nothing else, just to take a glance at that every now and then is a good idea. And he has posted right now about the fact the 1970s wallpaper. He's given examples of all different variations of wallpaper and shown you possible color kits that might be very much coordinating with that. So if you are still trying to put your own kit together from your stash or from purchasing at a a store or online with Etsy or whatever, you can take a look at that topic and see a lot of ideas for possible color families that you might want to create, especially if you're doing it at the last minute. It can kind of be a good idea starter for you and a good motivation. Another thing that I like to do is to finish up at this point any projects that are remaining. As you know, I am working very hard scurrying to finish up my Stephen West painting bricks socks because I want to get those finished, and they're pretty close, but I still have a little ways to go. So hopefully if I put a little last push effort into it, I will be able to either finish those socks or get them very close to it, so that, you know, that will be off my plate and I'll be all ready to go when we actually have the new clue released. So that's another thing that I suggest, is just a way to close up anything that remaining that you can quickly do, or keep your hands busy during the days that were spent waiting, so that you can, you know, be ready to go at the beginning of the knit along, because there's going to be some intense knitting, especially for Clue 1. You might get your hand exercises ready, or develop a plan of how you're going to, you know, take good care of yourself during that time, so that you don't overextend, you know, the ergonomics of your knitting. So you may be planning for that. You might also want to start getting together some ideas for some good podcasts that you can watch or listen to, either audibly or on YouTube, to motivate you and to knit along with during the knit along. That's always a good thing to do. You can also maybe select some movies that you could watch. If you like to do TV watching during your knitting, you could get some movie ideas selected, so that, again, once this starts, you'll be all ready to have some entertainment while you're knitting. Oh, also another important thing is to decide how surprised do you want to remain during the knit along. Are you one of these people who would really like to not have the clues revealed ahead of time? Like if you're behind a week, say you're not keeping up with the clues week by week, are you willing to see other people's Clue 1 revealed, or do you want to keep it quiet and not know ahead of time where the project is going? Because it is a mystery, but people have different degrees of their feeling about how mysterious they want to keep it. And some people even like to look ahead a little bit to keep them on course. So your opinion on that is good to kind of note ahead of time. And if you're someone who wants to keep it a secret, then just keep in mind the fact that some social media, like Instagram, for example, many people do post their pictures, and you know, there's been some projects revealed more than what you might want to see if you're keeping it a secret from yourself. So that's something to keep in mind. But one thing I like about the Ravelry group is that people make a point, and the moderators make sure that the pictures of people getting ahead of others, that those are kept hidden or cloaked, so that you have to actually click on the post in order to see and make sure that, you know, you are seeing something that you want to see. So I find that group, again, very, very helpful. Another thing that you might want to do is to, there's two podcasts in particular that you may want to start keeping your eye out for during this time. There's someone that, his name is Martin. He has a blog, or a YouTube podcast called Knit 365. He is out of the UK, and I believe he's in Wales. But he has worked on the knit along now for the past 3 or 4 years, since Slipstravaganza. And so he is a good one to watch. He has beautiful knitting, beautiful color selection, and he has a very entertaining podcast, and he definitely podcasts very, very regularly during the knit along. So I definitely would want to take a look out for him. He's one who originally, I think, made me aware of the mystery knit along. I had kind of known about Stephen West a bit, but I didn't know until I saw his podcast what all was involved, and I followed him on one of the years, and that's what motivated me to want to start when I did in 2021 with that project. His first was Slipstravaganza, and he does them every year, and he knits rather quickly, so he is able to keep at the clues or even a little bit ahead of them. And so I think he is definitely one that you would want to stay tuned to. I think what I remember is him saying he's going to take off the first 2 days, in other words, Thursday and Friday of the week they're released, so that he can get a little bit ahead of the game and get really working fast and hard on his project. So he's one to look out for, as well as his friend Irina, who has a podcast called Fiber Chat. And she does what she calls Humans of West Knit, where she's going to have people gathered together who are working on the knit along this year to discuss it together in a kind of a discussion format that I think will be really fun. So that's just an idea. One more thing I have as a suggestion is that you will want, if you're interested in doing this, to download a workshop Stephen has right now on sale until the end of September. I think it ends on September 30th. So you'll have to act on it very quickly if you haven't already to get the discount. But honestly, it's, you know, it's worthwhile regardless of whether you get the discount or not. It is called The History of the Mystery. And you can go to the Stephen and Penelope website to download this. And what it is he has gone through from 2011 when he started the first mystery knit along. He's gone all the way through all the shawls, telling you about how he created them, how each shawl was designed, how he got the idea for it, and as well as showing you swatches of his work. And then he also talks about modifications other people have done. He shows you, color variations and, again, the border modifications and different modifications that people have done, and told you some of his very favorite shawls. He has two in particular. I won't reveal which one is his very favorite, but he has two that he likes very, very well. And he will tell you all about that, as well as he has 3 total hours of content in it. So I really felt it was worth a listen. In fact, I sat down and was absorbed for 3 solid hours. I did some catch-up knitting while I was, actually I think it was crochet. I was working on my crochet Killer Queen shawl during that watching of that video. And I really think it's a good way and very inspirational to prepare for this current knit along. The last thing I want to suggest is that you think about preparing your project bag. Now, I received this one from my order of the Stephen West kit. And he had 3 different bag colors available, but it was just a 2-dimensional tote bag, a flat tote bag. And someone on the Ravelry group suggested that she was going to make hers into a box bottom. What that means is, instead of being flat, it has this opening here, this wide opening. And so I find that really more usable because you can set it down. Let me see if I can move things on this table to show you what I mean. When you have it this way, it just sits down more easily, and you can knit from it. You can turn turn it down a little bit on the top and knit right from it. And it just makes it more usable and sits on the table better. And so if you have one of these bags, you might want to consider doing that to your bag. Now, I will tell you, it will take off about 3 inches. So I did a 3-inch cut on mine. You cut the corners and then you seam them back up. That's basically how it's done. And I'm going to have a clip here for you in just a moment showing you how I did that so that you can get a better view of it. But basically, what you're doing is taking a 2 or 3 inch corner out of each side and then sewing them back together. And this makes you have that, what they call box bottom. So I'm going to show you that little insert here right now. Let's take a look. I wanted to show you how you might consider, if you have one of these tote bags that you got from the Stephen West MKAL
if you ordered online and got one of these bags. I wanted to show you if you wanted to convert it into a boxed bottom where it would sit flat, sit on the bottom, instead of being two-dimensional, you can do this fairly simply. And if you didn't order from Stephen West, you can still do the same thing with a regular tote bag. But what I did was first turn it inside out. And my bag at the beginning was 16 and a half tall and 16 and a half wide. Mine was. I don't know if all of them are the same or not. But what I did was take out a little 3-inch square, actually this way, from each side. So I took out a 3-inch square, just cut a corner off each side. And then what I'm going to do is go to the sewing machine, and I'm going to put this together like this so that it's, and pin it. Got some pins here. And I'm going to do that on both sides. And I'm going to be making about a 1/2 inch seam along here on the wrong side, obviously. To be doing the same thing on this side. Inside out, matching this up here so that I have this. I don't want to get my arm in the way. So you're taking it from the corner, like where it's a corner, and you're just, if you think of this as a mouth, just opening the mouth up there. The mouth of the bag, which is really the bottom. Just pinning it, roughly 3 places ought to do it, and if you want to use clips instead, you're welcome to do that. I just happen to like old school pin method, and I'm going to sew again along here about a 1/2 inch, which is your typical seam allowance.
Well, there you have it. It was really pretty simple, wasn't it? And so that's all I did. And then after I was sewing that mouth on the bag that I had cut the corner out of, then I just turned the bag right side out again. And I decided to go a step further, which is easy to do if you have any sewing experience at all, which is to make a lining inside of it. I went out to Joann store, and I got about a little bit more than a yard of fabric. And this is mine. It's a fall fabric. I just did this like last week, so they probably still have either this fabric or something very similar in the quilting area, the quilting cotton. And I decided to get this and to cut out, because my bag is 16 inches wide and long, I just decided to cut out 2 16-inch pieces. And it was very simple, but I am going to have a YouTube. I watched someone else's YouTube on a bag maker showing how to do this in a little bit more depth. So I'm going to have a link to that for you to watch it. But keep in mind, ours is, that lady is showing you how to knit, or excuse me, how to sew a bag from 2 flat pieces of cotton. So what she's doing is a little bit more complicated. Not much, but you would do the same thing as far as taking your 16-inch square and then cutting out the corner of the lining as well as you did the outside of the bag. And then you would sew the side seams together, the bottom seam together, so that it's all like an envelope. And then you sew that little corner on either side, just like we did this bag. So you basically make a cloth envelope, in a sense, if you think of it that way. And then you put it inside the bag, and you sew the top, fold down the top edge so it isn't a raw seam, and you sew that with the same color thread onto the bag. I decided, in addition to that, I wanted to put in a couple of pockets. So I did that in matching fabric. You could also use contrasting fabric. It would be very cute. If I had wanted to make like orange pockets for the inside of this, or chartreuse, or some other color, I could have done that. But the only thing that you would do with that is you would want to sew the pockets on before you put them onto the lining, because it's easier to sew them right on the right side of the lining before you start sewing the side seams together. So I think the best thing to do if you're interested in doing that is, you may already know how to do it, or to watch the YouTube video. But just know that it really isn't that involved, but it's just one more thing you can do to enhance and upgrade your bag if you choose to do that. The only thing left I'm going to do on my bag, I'm waiting to receive a button that I've ordered from Etsy, from an Etsy seller, to put a cute button. I'm going to try putting 2 buttons, one on either side of this flap. And then I'm not going to do a buttonhole myself. I'm just going to take a little piece of yarn, whatever yarns I end up using for my final project. I'm going to just make a little braid out of the yarn and then tie it on the button to secure it. That's what I'm going to do. But you could also make a handle if you wanted to, you know, cut a little piece of the fabric and you could insert it before you secure the lining in there. You could make a little, like, thing going across, a little flap, and sew it on either side. That's another idea. There's many things you could do, but I think spending a few days making a bag real quickly or enhancing a bag you already have might be something that some of you might want to do. So I just thought I would bring that up because I'm definitely feel like it'll make my project more fun, and it gives me something to do during these waiting days. So that's what I did, and I think you know, if you want to try that, it certainly is something. At least cutting the bag to a box bottom is very helpful. Now, another thing I want to show you is if you don't have, if you are a person who got your kit out of your own stash, or you, you know, did not get a bag, a Stephen West bag, one thing you can do is to use a tote, from a canvas tote from anyone. This is from my Bones Coffee. I love to order from Bones. And it already is a box bottom. Many of the totes you can pick up are already made into the box bottom. So that way you wouldn't have to do that box bottom technique. And you could add a lining if you wanted to, but it's very cute just as it is. So if you're not a sewer, just grab yourself, you know, you can usually get these for $5 or so. And another one I love is, I think this looks very 1970s. My mom picked this up for me at Trader Joe's, and I think it was around $5 if I'm not mistaken, but it also has the box bottom. And I think this one would be really cute as a project bag. I mean, what 1970s colors is that? Isn't it darling? And they had different things. I can't remember. I told her I wanted the one that said pickles, but it had some other little cute things too. But this is the basic color. And again, you can pick one up at any Trader Joe's. And last but not least, if you don't even want to fool with a canvas bag, here's a very 1970s theme. You can get from Half Price Bookstore. You can buy a little Velcro. This is like that kind of paper that they have on some packaging, like on that they mail, the mailers. So it's kind of Tyvek or whatever they call that is what this is made of. And it is, again, already a box bottom, and it's just the perfect size. This is a really good size for a project like we're doing. So it has that VW little VW van there, wagon, if you want to pick up one of these. I think it's just really cute. So that's yet another idea for you. Now I have one more thing I'd like to talk about before we go today. And it's a little story from about my grandmother, Fern, who is my mentor in all things with fiber creativity, because she was not only a knitter, she was very skilled at sewing. She was a knitter, did a little bit of crochet, did spinning, weaving, all the things that I do and more, much more. And so I wanted to mention the fact that every time I go on a retreat or get together with my knitting or spinning or weaving buddies, I often think of my grandmother and how much she would enjoy. In fact, sometimes I think she's going along with me in spirit, to be quite honest. But she loved doing all those things, and she built her own 1970s Ashford spinning wheel from a kit. She got it from New Zealand. It arrived from New Zealand, and many of the people in her spinning and weaving guild built those kits. At that time, the Ashford traditional wheel was the only one available, as far as I know. but they all built those and or got them already made, perhaps, I don't know, but she did put hers together. And it was very common. That's why you see so many Ashford traditional wheels from the 1970s available on the used market. I inherited mine from my grandmother, and I will always treasure it and keep it because I know how much she loved it and remember her spinning on it very fondly. But one thing I thought was funny was that she always worked as a medical secretary for the local hospital down the street. And she had never been a driver. All the years she would walk to work. It was several blocks away. But in good weather, she would walk to work. And in inclement weather, she would have my grandfather drive her, drop her off and pick her up. But most of the time she walked. And she had no desire for many, many years. If she needed to go get something from the store, either my grandpa would drive her or one of her friends, or she would walk there sometimes. She would often walk up to the square near her home and would do some shopping or some thrift store shopping, which was another one of her favorite pastimes that she and I shared. So she always just said, "Oh, I don't need to drive. I'm perfectly fine." But what was interesting was in 1976, when I was 16, during our country's bicentennial, I was trying to get my driver's license. I was taking driver's ed in high school. And at that same time, she was getting ready to retire from the hospital. And lo and behold, right around that time of her retirement party, she was very excited to be able to indulge more in her fiber hobbies and to be more with her friends and finally have a little bit of free time to do some of her favorite crafts. And so the first thing she did was go out and get her driver's license. And she also, they remodeled a little part of their home to make her porch into a loom room so she could put her large floor loom in that room. And then another thing they did was bought her a little VW Bug, they called it. It was a little tiny car at that time. Hers was bright red, very cheery. She and Grandpa bought that car for her to finally be able to have a little bit of independence, to drive around in her little car. And the first thing she would do with it, one of the things I have fond memories of, is her friend Velma coming over, and they were members of the Kansas City Weavers Guild, which met down at Luce Park at the time. She and Velma loading up that little VW Bug with 2 spinning wheels, each of them Ashford Traditionals, loading them up in the back seat, strapping them down into the, the strap, the seatbelt strap, so they'd be secure, and loading up that car with their baskets of fiber and their weaving samples and all of their little goodies, getting in that car. It was so full to the brim of their stuff, and happily driving away to their fiber adventure together. That memory just makes a smile come to my face every time I think of it. So I hope it brought you a little joy too, thinking about how you are on a fiber adventure too. And it can bring so much creativity and fun and inspiration into your daily life. You don't have to go away in a Volkswagen Bug to have that moment. You can do it anytime. You can get a few minutes away to sit down with a cup of hot tea or whatever your drink of choice is and just sit down and relax and enjoy your own creativity. That's really what it's all about, isn't it? So I really look forward to sharing this MKAL journey with you. It's going to start very, very soon, very soon. And when I get any progress at all done on Clue 1, I will be sharing that with you in another podcast. Hopefully you will tune in and follow my journey, and I would love to hear in your comments about your journey as you go along in this too. So I'm going to say goodbye again by saying, love what you're making and wear what you make.